A little boy knocks on a billionaire's office door, eagerly asking for a job because he dreams of helping his hardworking single parent. Mom takes a day off. And what the billionaire does next is sure to surprise the little boy and his mom. Excitement is in the air. Before we dive in, we'd love to hear from you in the comments about where you're tuning in from. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Support the channel, then sit back, relax, and enjoy. The receptionist at Wolf Enterprises had encountered many unusual happenings during her years at the front desk. Desk investors enthusiastically engaging while reporters make their bold attempts to slip past security. Even the occasional ex-girlfriend making a scene. But a 7-year-old boy in a comically oversized suit radiates confidence. Striding toward her desk was a first Leo Carter, adjusting the sleeves of his blazer, which was a bit off but still full of potential. Swallowed his arms whole and cleared his throat in an exaggeratedly professional manner. "I need to see Mr. Wolf." He placed a slightly crumpled sheet of paper on the counter for the receptionist, a middle-aged woman named Carol, who had skillfully perfected the art of gracefully dismissing people without causing a stir, was always ready for new interactions. She gave the boy a quick glance before turning back to her computer, where her dear Mr. Wolf awaited. "It seems like he's quite busy. Perhaps writing him a letter could be a great idea." Leo furrowed his brows, clearly thinking it over. He expressed his thoughts on the suggestion, noting that letters take a bit longer than expected, but he remains open to exploring other options. A job now is important. Carol couldn't help but suppress a chuckle as she glanced at the paper he had placed on the counter brought her amusement. It was a resume written in a crayon drawing featuring what she imagined was Leo himself, standing proudly with a stack of dollar bills. He had listed his qualifications: great at math, a fast runner, very strong, and knows how to make toast. Just as she was about to gently shoo him away, a deep voice interrupted, "What's going on here?" in the entire lobby. It appeared that Ste. Harrison Wolf typically chose not to show up down here, as he enjoyed staying in his office, overseeing his empire from above like a king on his throne, and today, the CEO of Wolf is ready to embrace new possibilities. Enterprises had stepped out of the elevator just in time to witness a very small boy enthusiastically attempting to negotiate his. As Carol approached the job opportunity, she felt a moment of uncertainty about how to articulate her thoughts, but she was ready to embrace the challenge. Before she could, Leo took matters into his own hands. "You must be Mr. Wolf," said, tilting his head up to take in the tall man in a tailored charcoal suit. "Great. I was just asking for a meeting with you." Brought a slow, incredulous smirk to Harrison's face. "Were you?" Now Leo nodded, completely at ease with the billionaire's imposing presence. "Yep, I'm on the lookout for a job." The few employees in the lobby subtly turned their heads, pretending not to eavesdrop, but it felt like they were curious. Harrison, clearly invested in whatever was happening, found himself intrigued despite crossing his arms, curious about the unfolding events. "What kind of job are you looking for?" "Something that pays well," Leo answered confidently. "My mom works so hard and always gives her all. I'm excited to earn enough to help her take a well-deserved break. Money to give her a day off." For the first time, Harrison truly noticed the boy really took the time to see him. The oversized blazer, the scuffed sneakers peeking out from beneath the too long pants, the determined set of his small jaw. There was a clear determination in his eyes, no thought of pity. Just pure determination, as if he had every right to be here. The sensible thing would. It's clear that Harrison Wolf had other priorities in mind when it came to hiring, as he focused on more experienced candidates. There are so many exciting activities to explore instead of focusing on whatever game this kid was playing. And yet, despite all logic, he discovered. He invited Carol to join him, while the EMP employees lingered nearby. Exchanged wide-eyed glances, and even Leo seemed momentarily surprised before quickly recovering, puffing out his chest with importance as he followed Harrison toward the private elevator. The ride to the top floor was filled with a quiet anticipation, broken only by the occasional squeak of Leo's sneakers against the polished marble floor. When they finally reached Harrison's office, and the boy let out a low whistle. "Wow, this is impressive." He noticed the fancy design as he wandered over to the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the entire city. "Sounds amazing. It seems like a wonderful opportunity that often comes with success." "You run a billion-dollar company," Harrison remarked with a hint of amusement. lowering himself into the sleek leather chair behind his desk. So tell me, Leo, what makes your mom's day so special? Leo crossed his arms, feeling a bit tired. He simply stated that she works hard, double shifts at the diner, and even when she's home, she's busy with new things. I asked her to take a day off before, but she said we couldn't afford it. He lifted his chin. So I figured if I made the money myself, so she wouldn't have a choice. Harrison leaned back in his chair, studying the boy. This was usually the part where kids, if they even made it this far, would start with hopeful eyes and heartfelt pleas for help. But Leo wasn't seeking a handout. He wasn't even looking for charity. He wanted to earn the money. Harrison's assistant, Melanie, peeked her head in, looking a bit puzzled. Sir, do you need me to call security? Or Harrison waved her off. Not just yet. He turned his attention back to Leo. If I were to offer you a job, what amazing contributions do you believe you could bring to the table? Here, Leo pulled out a second crumpled piece of paper from his jacket pocket and smoothed it out on the desk. I made a list. And Harris glanced at it with a raised brow. As he read the hastily scribbled words, he felt a sense of purpose. Help people carry their belongings, ensure nothing goes missing, and bring about something positive. Ideas, share jokes to bring joy. He chuckled before he could hold it back. Share jokes. Huh? Yep, Leo replied. People truly thrive when they're happy. And my mom believes that too. Harrison tapped his fingers against the desk, a smirk playing at the corner of his mouth. He should send the kid on his way. Should be focusing on his actual work, not entertaining a 7-year-old's business proposal. But there was a spark of creativity. There was something undeniably refreshing about Leo that touched a part of Harrison he hadn't even realized was there. Still there, he finally leaned forward. All right, Leo, you want a job? You've got it. One Leo's eyes sparkled with excitement. Harrison mentioned he's pondering his sanity, but just for today, what a thought. As an intern, Leo beamed with excitement. Okay. So what do I do first? Harrison leaned back. I'm excited to kick things off by getting you a desk, while Melanie looked on in surprise. In the doorway, Harrison's employees exchanged excited whispers as Leo Carter officially became the youngest business consultant Wolf Enterprises had ever seen, and though Harrison didn't know it yet, this impulsive decision was on the brink of bringing about a remarkable transformation. Everything. Harrison leaned back in his chair, watching with delight as Leo paced around the office like a miniature, an executive gearing up for a significant acquisition. The kid had embraced his one-day internship with enthusiasm. The transformation of his crumpled paper resume into a neatly organized document showcases a remarkable dedication that could inspire even some of Harrison's actual employees. He smoothed out the paper on the desk, a pen in his tiny hand, as he joyfully scribbled on a fresh sheet. Every now and then, he paused, taking in the moment. He taps the pen against his chin, lost in thought, then nods to himself, as if he's just made an exciting decision. Melanie, still hovering in the doorway with the expression of someone witnessing an alternate reality, she cleared her throat. Sir, should I really find him a desk? Harrison smirked, glancing at Leo. The kid was already settling in comfortably, and he had a feeling that if he didn't assign him a workspace, Leo would eagerly take the initiative. He confidently waved a dismissive hand, saying, Sure, give him a spot. Let's discover the exciting ideas our new business consultant has in store. Leo's face brightened as Melanie guided him out of the office. For reasons he couldn't fully explain, Harrison found himself delightfully amused by. The whole situation was quite unique. It wasn't every day a 7-year-old burst into his life seeking employment. Most kids were too busy enjoying video games or whatever fun activities kids were up to these days. Yet here was Leo, eager to give his mother a well-deserved day off as if it were the most natural and logical thing to do in the world, just half an hour away. Later, Harrison was reviewing reports when his office phone rang, and he eagerly picked it up. He was only half paying attention until he heard the voice on the other end. Mr. Wolf. Melanie's voice had a hint of caution. But there's something intriguing you might want to check out. Harrison smiled as there was a pause, followed by a hopeful sigh. Your new consultant is holding a. During the staff meeting, Harrison blinked in surprise. He must have misheard what he thought he had. Half of marketing with a couple of junior execs and 2 interns in the break room. It sounds like he's sharing some exciting ideas. I heard something about cookies and spaceships. Harrison was already pushing himself out of his chair, excitedly saying, "I'll be right there." Arrived at the break room. The scene that greeted him was truly remarkable. Employees who typically reacted with hesitation when Harrison entered a room were gathered around, engaged and listening intently as Leo standing on a chair delivered what could only be described as an inspiring presentation. "So if we give people cookies will bring them joy," Leo was explaining with great enthusiasm, gesturing animatedly. "Joyful and enthusiastic people put in more effort, my mom says, and when they do, that means your company is thriving." And a wave of cheerful agreement rippled through the gathered employees. Someone in the back quietly acknowledged that he wasn't entirely off base, and Leo went on with another point. "Your company has the potential to offer exciting products, not just the usual business items." "No spaceships." A light-hearted chuckle rippled through the room, and Harrison folded his arms raised in joy. "Spaceships zooming by." Leo beamed. "Absolutely. Everyone loves spaceships. And if you offer them, people will definitely want to buy them. You'll be incredibly wealthy, even more than you are now." Harrison shook his head, just a little. Holding back his laughter, he said, "You're thinking too small, kid. We should just buy NASA." As we continued, Leo's eyes lit up with excitement. And what a fantastic idea it was. Laughter filled the air, creating a joyful atmosphere. From the employees, Harrison discovered a newfound enjoyment. He hadn't seen the staff feel so at ease lately. The office has typically thrived on efficiency, and people respected him and surely had a bit of fear, but they also laughed, and that was a positive aspect. New and oddly refreshing. Just as he was about to extend the meeting with enthusiasm, the office phone buzzed in his pocket, and he eagerly pulled it out to see an incoming call from the front desk. It was Carol's voice on the line. Arrived urgently, though a bit unsure. "There's a woman here inquiring about her son." Harrison seems to be feeling quite emotional, already aware of who it was. By the time he returned to his office, Sophie Carter was already there, ready to make things happen. They stand with arms crossed, looking quite intense. "I can't help but wonder where my son Harrison is." Had time to notice the wave of frustration and exhaustion radiating from her before Leo came bounding into the office behind him, was completely unaware of the excitement brewing in his mother's eyes. "Mom," Leo beamed, "guess what I gotta?" Sophie's head turned eagerly toward her son as Harrison leaned against his desk, arms crossed, observing the exchange with a light-hearted sense of amusement. He had navigated through it all. Determined investors, fierce competitors, and challenging board meetings. But there's something uniquely intense about an upset mother. "Mom." "It's okay," Leo assured Mr. Wolf. "Mentioned I could be his business consultant for the day, and I even had a meeting with Sophie, who directed her glare toward me." Harrison, my 7-year-old, decided to join the meeting on his own. "The meeting," Harrison said, completely unbothered. And to be fair, his cookie, the idea was solid. Sophie seemed ready to burst with excitement about this, and I don't. "We're heading out now, Leo, but I just wanted to mention that I haven't received my payment yet." Harrison, despite the odds, found himself stepping in with determination. "Just trying to help you, you know." Sophie turned her glare to him again. "Oh, really? And you, a billionaire?" Thought the best way to help was to humor him instead of, "I don't know, calling me Harrison." Shrugged, he appeared quite resolute as Sophie pinched the bridge of her nose. "It's hard to believe this." Leo, sensing the situation shifting, gave it one last shot with a new tactic. "But Mom, Mr. Wolf said you should take a day off." Sophie froze. "Excuse me, Harrison? You're absolutely right. You work so hard, and you truly deserve a break. I've got you covered. Whatever you'd make in a shift, no strings attached." Sophie scoffed. "Oh, that's quite amusing. You really believe I'm going to accept a handout from a billionaire who sees this as just a game?" "Joke." Harrison's jaw tightened. "It's not a handout, it's a suggestion. And perhaps an..." Sophie expressed her regret for allowing your son to have free rein in my company throughout the day. Leo sighed, feeling a bit disinterested, but his mom was there to support him. She said with determination, then turned back to Harrison. "I appreciate whatever game you're playing here, but I don't take charity." Harrison observed her determined, fiercely independent, and perhaps a bit too proud nature. For her own good, for the first time in a long time, he felt something that wasn't just amusement or mild curiosity. There was a mix of frustration and respect. He mentioned, "I truly meant what I said." Sophie chose not to respond to that instead. She took Leo's hand, expressing her determination to keep him close, and confidently stormed out. Harrison exhaled. Rubbing a hand over his face, Melanie peeked in again. So, does this mean we're on the right track? Harrison sighed. We're not buying spaceships, Melanie. Let's focus on what we can do. He couldn't quite understand why Sophie Carter lingered in his thoughts. He had encountered many challenging individuals before, including board members, investors, and even the occasional competitor who believed they could outmaneuver him. But her unwavering determination was truly inspiring. To accept his offer knotted her. Perhaps it was her pride and unyielding independence that reminded him of himself, or perhaps it was Leo, the kid with an incredible amount of determination. He stood confidently in his oversized blazer, asking for a job as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The way he discovered himself engaging in something unexpected, showing curiosity about someone else's life the next morning. Instead of heading to his usual high-rise office, Harrison found himself driving toward a part of the city it had been years since I last visited, and the streets felt narrower, the buildings seemed older. But the sidewalks buzzed with energy as people hurried to work, and small businesses joyfully opened their doors for the day. On a day filled with the delightful aroma of fresh bread from a corner bakery, the vibrant sense of a city that never truly rests come together in perfect harmony. The black sports car stood out in a striking way as he pulled up in front of the Bluebell Diner, a small bustling hub of activity. A restaurant nestled between a laundromat and a hardware store welcomed him with a cheerful jingle of the bell as he stepped inside, where the atmosphere was buzzing with energy. Every table buzzed with early morning customers as a waitress swiftly glided by, balancing a towering stack of plates. The air buzzed with the sounds of clinking coffee cups and casual conversation. Harrison inhaled deeply, embracing the vibrant atmosphere. The aroma of bacon and syrup was surprisingly comforting as he made his way toward the counter, where a cheerful teenage girl with a name tag greeted him. Reading Maddie approached chewing gum as if she had all the time in the world. Feel free to take a seat anywhere, sir. The drinks are all set, and Harrison looked around, noticing an inviting booth by the window, just right. He settled into the seat, making himself comfortable. Cufflinks only to hear a voice behind him. Sir, that table's reserved. He turned. Harrison spotted an elderly man holding a newspaper, offering him a polite yet assertive gaze. He blinked, feeling a sense of curiosity. Smirked. Yes, old man Charlie has been there every morning for 15 wonderful years. Feel free to take that seat. But just know you might find yourself in a playful tussle with a spirited 78-year-old over territory. Harrison sighed and moved to the counter, instead settling onto a bar stool. Maddie handed him a menu, and he felt a sense of excitement about the choices ahead. She barely glanced at it before looking up at her with a smile. I'll take a latte, she said, letting out a light laugh. Hey there. Welcome to the diner. We've got delicious coffee, whether you like it black or with cream and sugar. Enjoy, Harrison stared at her. No espresso, no steamed milk. Maddie gave him a look that suggested he'd inquired about the availability of lobster, and she cheerfully responded that they had coffee, of course. He took a deep breath as Maddie turned to pour his drink, and Harrison reached into his. The wallet eagerly snatched the first bill it spotted and cheerfully placed it on the counter. A crisp note ready for use. Maddie turned back, saw the $100 bill, and let out a joyful laugh. Sir, what? Do you think this is the Ritz? Do you have anything smaller? Harrison frowned just a bit. Keep the change. Just as Maddie was about to respond, another voice chimed in. It was a delightful surprise. He turned around, and there she was. Sophie Carter stood behind the counter in a slightly faded blue apron, a towel casually draped over her shoulder, ready to embrace the day ahead. Harrison tilted his head, bringing a unique perspective to the morning with Carter. Sophie put her hands on her hips, curious about what you were doing here. Coffee, he said with a bright smile, casually lifting the cup Maddie had just placed in front of him. And so far discovering just how much I appreciate lattes, she narrowed her eyes. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the counter, ready to explore another answer with enthusiasm. I was curious to find out if Leo is the kind of person who takes vacations. Sophie's expression shifted as she realized you came all the way here just to check up on her. He shrugged, saying he was in the neighborhood. Her lips pressed into a thin line. No, you weren't all right. That's fine. He wasn't, but now that he was here, He could definitely make the most of his time. He lifted his coffee to his lips, took a sip, and felt a moment of surprise. "This is," he muttered as he set it down, and Maddie let out an amused snort. "That's what happens when you enjoy fancy billionaire coffee every day." Sophie rubbed her temple, feeling as if his presence was surrounding her. "It seems like she's feeling a bit overwhelmed. I understand you have your own agenda, but I really need to focus on my tasks. If we could wrap this up, that would be great. Whatever game this is, you can count on me to join in." As a voice cut through the diner, and Harrison unexpectedly became the focus of attention when a middle-aged woman approached him with determination. "Excuse me, Miss Carter. I'm curious about why this man is sitting in my booth." Harrison turned surprised to find himself looking at an absolutely livid customer, Sophie. Mrs. Dalton sighed. "I'm truly sorry, but this is my booth. The woman insisted I sit here every morning." Maddie leaned over the counter toward Harrison and cheerfully reminded him that the people here are serious about their work. Harrison glanced at her, then at Mrs. Dalton, and finally at Sophie, taking in the moment with a sense of curiosity. "Stood by all means," Mrs. Dalton huffed and slid into the booth with enthusiasm. Harrison shook his head at the self-importance of a queen reclaiming her throne. "Place is something else." Sophie looked up at him, a bit exasperated. "Yes, it is, and I have work to do." "Do so unless you're here to apply for a job." "Not today," Harrison interjected with ease. Watching her, he had anticipated seeing her busy, but he was pleasantly surprised to find her in this state. Though she moved at a pace that hinted at fatigue, she embraced her tasks with determination, taking orders and balancing trays with a sense of purpose. Effortlessly navigating around customers while engaging in conversation, she was also wiping down a counter, refilling a coffee cup, encouraging Maddie to grab another plate. She wasn't just tired. She was ready for more. Feeling overwhelmed by responsibility, and for reasons he couldn't quite grasp, he found it unappealing. Exhaled, reaching into his wallet and pulling out a wad of cash. Sophie's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Quickly focused, don't even think about it. You won't get a break unless someone steps in." Sophie eagerly reached for the money placed on the counter, ready to take care of the wages. I returned the bills to him and said, "I've mentioned before, I prefer to stand on my own." Harrison held her gaze, and I don't make offers twice. She stared at him for a moment. A long moment passed with something mysterious flickering across her face, and then she exhaled sharply, tucking the money away into his hand. "Then I suppose we both have our strong wills." With that, she turned and grabbed a pot of coffee and walked away, leaving Harrison standing there with a fist full of rejected money and a cup that could turn things around. Of diner coffee, he smirked. Interesting. Harrison should have let it go. He knew that any sane man would have walked out of that diner chuckling at Sophie Carter's stubbornness as a delightful but an encounter that didn't hold much weight, and he continued on with his life, focusing on the companies he had to run, exciting opportunities to build an empire to sustain, and just 2 days later, he discovered himself pulling up in front of the Bluebell Diner once again. This time with a plan. It wasn't just about Sophie anymore. It was the principle of it. She was the first person in years who had seen his money as if it held no value, like it didn't have the ability to fix everything, yet he found himself captivated by the way she moved through that diner, carrying exhaustion in her bones but determined to keep moving forward. He wanted to know what inspired her. So incredibly strong, why she wouldn't allow herself to relax, and perhaps he appreciated the morning rush had just settled when he walked in, hands in his pockets, eagerly scanning the diner for her. Sophie was behind the counter flipping through an order pad, her hair cheerfully pulled into a ponytail. She hadn't noticed him, and a smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. This was going. He strolled up to the counter with a sense of ease and casually leaned on it. "Carter." Sophie's head snapped up, and the moment she saw him, she let out a playful groan. "Oh, you." Once more, do billionaires not have more exciting pursuits? Harrison grinned, and we multitask. She exhaled sharply, setting down her order pad. "If you came here to present me with money once more, but don't bother. It's not about the money," he said with a calm demeanor. "It's a deal." Sophie narrowed her eyes, clearly not interested. "You haven't even heard it yet," she exclaimed. Harrison chuckled, shaking his head. "You certainly have a unique way of doing things, don't you?" He reached into his pocket, pulled out a neatly folded check, and slid it across the counter. 1 week, Full pay, no strings attached. Attached, Sophie gave it a quick look before playfully pushing it back to him. Let's give it another shot. You didn't let me finish, he said with a playful smirk. I'll cover your wages for a week if you agree to have dinner with me. Sophie paused, a look of surprise crossing her face as her lips parted. Slightly as she processed his words, then she blinked, her eyes narrowing into a determined gaze. Oh, you must be joking. Not at all. Harrison said smoothly during dinner. That's the deal. Sophie scoffed. And I wonder what could possibly motivate me to do that. Harrison shrugged. Because I always win bets. And it seems like you could use a little time to recharge. Think of it as a positive opportunity. Business transaction. You take the time off, and in return, I get an enjoyable evening. Your company. Sophie let out a brief, humorless laugh. It's truly remarkable, isn't it? I think I'd go on a date with you. Harrison raised an eyebrow. Who said anything about pity? Sophie folded her arms. Arms weren't happening at that moment. Just before Harrison could make his case, Leo arrived, bounding in from the kitchen where Maddie had been delightfully sneaking him extra pancakes. Mr. Wolf, he said with enthusiasm, then noticed the check on the counter. Whoa, what's that? Sophie quickly snatched it up, and Harrison smirked, saying it's a deal I offered. Your mom has a week of paid time off, and I can't wait to share dinner with you. Leo's eyes will light up at the thought, widened then to Harrison's utter delight. He spun to his mother with a look of playful disbelief. Mom, are you serious? What? Sophie sighed. Oh, come on, Leo. Mom, you never do anything fun. Leo urged, with his arms crossed. You realize that working all the time has led to this perfect moment where you can take a break and enjoy your freedom. Food made Sophie's eye twitch. But I'm not going to let that get in the way of a good conversation with my 7-year-old. Why not? Leo shot back. I got you into this mess, so technically I did. Harrison chuckled. I like the way this kid thinks. Sophie shot. She shot him a look that could kill, then turned back to Leo. I don't want to break, Leo, and I definitely don't want to go on a dinner date with Mr. Moneybags over here. Leo huffed. Mom, please, just this once. He looked up at her with wide, hopeful eyes, the same look Harrison imagined had inspired her to let him apply. For a job in the first place, I assure you I won't ask for anything else for a whole month, Sophie sighed, gently massaging her forehead. Leo, let's go, Carter Harrison interjected, relishing this experience. Consider it a negotiation. I assist you. You put up with me for a couple of hours. Simple Sophie let out a long sigh. Oh, you two are quite the handful. Does that mean yes? Leo asked with excitement as she playfully pinched. The bridge of her nose is just right, and one dinner sounds delightful, even if it's not a date. Harrison completed the business transaction with a sense of accomplishment, while Sophie playfully pointed a finger at him, her smirk adding a light-hearted touch to the moment. Imagine for a moment that this means I like you, Harrison grinned. I wouldn't dream of it. Leo pumped his fist, exclaiming, yes, this is going to be awesome. Sophie added with enthusiasm, something under her breath that sounded a lot like I am going to regret this so much. But Harrison was excited. He had one. This was going to be quite an exciting experience. Sophie spent the entire day preparing for the upcoming business transaction, seeking to reassure herself that it was merely dinner, just a meal, just a simple obligation. She'd persevere to get Harrison Wolf off her back. It wasn't a date, absolutely not. She found herself standing in front of the mirror, smoothing down her dress with a sense of anticipation. As she guessed her choice of shoes, she couldn't help but smile at her own reflection, embracing the uniqueness of her style. Doing this for Leo, not because a billionaire had managed to get under her skin, but because she believed in the importance of the task ahead. The door made her heart leap. She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and opened it with determination. To blink in confusion, Harrison wasn't dressed in one of his usual perfectly tailored suits. Instead, he wore dark jeans, a casual button-up with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, and was that a leather jacket? She arched a brow. Are we robbing a bank? Harrison smirked, tempting as it sounds, but no. You'll see, Sophie. Narrowed her eyes but followed him outside where a sleek black car was parked by the curb just as she anticipated, and when Harrison opened the door for her, and she noticed something unexpected about the route they were taking, which made her frown. As they strolled by upscale restaurants, exclusive lounges, and Michelin star establishments, It felt like they were in a vibrant and exciting place. As you go, you'll notice his eyes sparkling with delight, just like Sophie. She huffed and crossed her arms. But when Harrison finally pulled into a parking lot, she stared in awe at a carnival. Radiant lights, vibrant neon signs, the delightful aroma of fried food wafting through the air, and the enchanting sound of a carousel chiming a cheerful tune. What a wonderful scene, even slightly resembling the formal dinner she'd been apprehensive about. She turned to him. Harrison grinned in disbelief. What a surprise. Fancy enough for you? Sophie let out a laugh. I thought you'd take me to an expensive restaurant with small portions on large plates, but that's just part of the experience. What a surprising discovery. I enjoy regular food as well. He got out of the car and walked. Let's open her door and make this a great experience, Carter. Sophie, filled with a sense of wonder, followed him inside. Her curiosity piqued as the adventure began. They strolled through the vibrant lights and lively crowds, Sophie feeling a sense of excitement. Watching with delight as Harrison scanned the booth like he was analyzing stock market trends when they reached the ring toss. He smirked. Watch and learn, he said, rolling up his sleeves. Sophie crossed her arms with a hint of skepticism. But oh, this is going to be entertaining. He tossed the first ring and missed, but there's always a chance for improvement. Smiled while adjusting his stance, ready for the second ring, and although he missed the third, he remained hopeful. Sophie was laughing with genuine joy, a sound she hadn't shared in ages. Oh my God, Mr. Billionaire. I thought you were meant to excel at everything. Harrison frowned, but this game is full of possibilities. It's clear he's determined to make things right as he stepped aside with open arms. Crossed all right. Show me how it's done. Then Sophie grabbed a ring, aimed, and, with remarkable ease landed it perfectly on the bottle, and Harrison stared in awe. You're joking, she smiled. Not too shabby for someone who truly experienced a childhood. Harrison chuckled and happily handed her a stuffed bear from the prize shelf. What began as a stroke of fortune quickly transformed into a night filled with intense challenges and excitement. Challenges. Sophie gave it her all at the basketball hoops, and Harrison really shined at the high striker. What a fun competition. One at the water gun race. And then he found a way to gain an advantage during the balloon dart game by convincing the vendor to let him stand 2 feet closer. At some point, they got cotton candy, which Harrison had never tried before. It's amazing how it just disappears in your mouth. And Sophie is watching with such genuine interest. Reaction had to look away to keep herself from smiling widely. She hadn't. She was surprised by any of this. She hadn't anticipated that Harrison Wolf would be so competitive. Over rigged carnival games, she was pleasantly surprised to hear him actually laugh and enjoy himself. Funny bets to be so delightfully bad at skee-ball. And she absolutely hadn't. Looking forward to having a great time despite him loudly asking for a refund for the basketball game. It's all part of the experience. It's quite a challenge for a hoop to be that small, and she couldn't help but burst into laughter at his attempts to pop even one balloon. Forgot this was supposed to be an obligation for the first time in a long time. She felt free as the night gently unfolded. They found themselves on the Ferris wheel, a bag of popcorn between them. The lights of the city sparkling in the As the distance grew, the carnival noise gently faded away. Sophie let out a contented sigh, leaning back with a sense of peace. All right, I'll admit it. This turned out to be better than I expected, Harrison smirked. High praise. I'm truly honored. She shook her head and then eyed him, curious about his true intentions. Harrison's smirk wavered for a moment as he paused and took a deep breath, because Sophie tilted her head, eagerly waiting as he ran a hand through his hair, his gaze full of promise. Drifting toward the city lights when I was a kid, we dreamed of places like. My mom worked 2 jobs while my dad was away, and then when I finally had the chance, I was focused on pursuing success. And I didn't take the time to appreciate these moments. He exhaled, and it seemed like he was curious to discover if there was something he had overlooked. Sophie watched him with interest. Carefully. Something shifted in her chest, and Harrison glanced at her. I think I did the weight of those words hang between them lighter than she expected. Sophie swallowed. She wasn't supposed to like him. He was confident, challenging, and wealthy. She had spent her whole life scraping by, and men like him weren't part of her world. But in this moment, he was truly present. Like a billionaire. He was just a guy sitting next to her, sharing thoughts he probably hadn't revealed to anyone else. And The first time Sophie saw him, not the billionaire, just Harrison. She shook her head, glancing away. But at least you've discovered how to enjoy yourself. It took you a while. But Harrison chuckled. I had a great teacher. The Ferris wheel came to a stop. Neither of them moved right away. And then Harrison smirked. By the way, I'm seeing this as a victory. Sophie raised an eyebrow at how I managed to get you to admit you had fun. She rolled her eyes but smiled. You're impossible, and yet here you are. Sophie groaned. But she didn't let that hold her back. Somehow, she sensed that he felt the same way. They stepped off the Ferris wheel, still enveloped in the unique stillness that follows such moments. Sharing a heartfelt moment as they walked through the carnival lights, neither of them spoke much, but there was a gentle warmth lingered in the air between them. A subtle recognition that something wonderful had shifted. Harrison had never imagined. He was the type who wouldn't change for anyone. He had crafted his life around control, managing his business and his image with confidence. Most of all his emotions. But in a surprising twist, Sophie was there, even without him realizing it. Carter and her bright son had gently navigated through all of his defenses. It began in a subtle way rather than bursting forth. As the meetings wrapped up, he found himself happily lingering in the office, pondering whether Leo would approve of the latest snack offerings in the break room while embracing employee birthday celebrations as a wonderful opportunity to bring everyone together. Distractions. He now found himself enjoying entire gatherings, nodding along as cupcakes were passed around, and, best of all, he found himself eagerly anticipating Sophie's texts, which were often short and sometimes playful, but always with that underlying warmth she tried so hard to hide. Even his employees noticed. Melanie, his assistant, had raised an eyebrow when he asked her to ensure Leo always felt welcome to visit Carol. The receptionist had a playful smirk when she noticed him beaming at a text from Sophie. Sent about Leo's exciting new plan to teach their neighbor's cat to fetch, of course. Harrison was fully aware of the situation. He was choosing to let it unfold, and whether he wanted to or not. And for the first time in his life, he embraced the moment. It's unfortunate that this should have been his first warning. The second one arrived on a Thursday evening when Sophie met him outside the diner after her shift, arms crossed, looking a bit out of sorts but ready for what was to come. Leo has been eager to visit your office again, she mentioned. Shifting on her feet, and despite my initial hesitations, Harrison leaned against his car, smirking, and I feel like I could be okay with it. Push it, Wolf, and there was a playful sparkle in her eye. Marking a delightful first moment, Harrison allowed himself to think that perhaps this thing between them was possible, and then it all fell apart. It all began with a phone call. A friendly routine check-in from one of his development executives. I'm excited to confirm that the acquisition paperwork for the Lincoln Square project is in progress. The diner on the corner of Bluebell is almost finalized, and it seems like it's the last holdout. Exciting times ahead. I'm hopeful that we'll be moving forward soon. Harrison has paused the Lincoln Square project, the real estate development deal he had set in motion months ago, the one that included plans to buy out the entire block including Sophie's diner. And the realization struck him with surprising clarity. The gut, sir, has put everything on hold. He said quickly that there will be no further action until I. So, there was a pause. And Harrison understood. He hung up, gripping the phone with determination. His knuckles turned white as he gripped tightly, feeling the urgency to fix this right away. And Sophie discovered it was already too late before he had the chance to share that he didn't know. It's possible that one of the other employees caught wind of something, perhaps from an article. It seems the project has come back into focus, and perhaps someone has made the connections needed to highlight it for her. All he knew was that when he showed up at the diner the next evening, excited for their usual banter, she was waiting for him. Him standing outside, arms crossed, with a fierce determination in her eyes as she prepared to take on the challenge ahead. Diner Harrison opened his mouth, but she kept the conversation flowing, not giving him a chance to speak this whole time. Went on, voice trembling. You were simply biding your time for the perfect opportunity to come in and take the one thing connecting me, and half the people who work here are doing great, Sophie. It's not like that at all. So, what is it like? Her voice rose because it sure feels different. It feels like I was played, but Harrison took a step forward and she followed suit. One back, creating space between them, and for the first time in years he felt Helpless. I didn't know, he said with a sincerity that was truly remarkable. I began that deal months ago. Long before our paths crossed, and throughout all this time. We spent time together, and you never thought to bring it up. He exhaled sharply. I didn't understand how Sophie laughed. A brief yet sharp sound, as she explained your situation. I'm planning to tackle my job, even though it's not the best first aid conversation. Harrison clenched his jaw, and I called. Regarding the acquisition, I'm not concerned about what halted him. He was prepared for some pushback. He hadn't anticipated that Sophie would take a breath, steadying herself. But her voice was still thick with anger, believing that money could solve everything. The diner decided to cancel a deal, thinking that throwing some cash at the problem would make it disappear. But it didn't quite work out that way. It doesn't work like that, Harrison. He took a deep breath. I always wanted to do my best and never cause any pain. She shook her head, looking away, as if she was finding it hard to meet his gaze. I welcomed you in, Leo, and now I get to share with him why he's never. Seeing you again filled him with a rush of emotions. And he took a step forward. Forward, Sophie. She exhaled and then turned on her heel. This was a learning experience. Harrison stood there watching her disappear into the diner. His hands clenched at his sides, filled with anticipation. Facing a loss for the first time in his life, Harrison was determined to find a way to navigate through this challenge. I have always believed that every challenge comes with a solution, and that business is all about strategy, about control and understanding the perfect moments to advance and to step back. Yet nothing in his carefully crafted world had equipped him for Sophie Carter. For 4 days, he replayed their last conversation in his mind, cherishing every moment. His head trying to pinpoint where exactly it had all gone, the unexpected twist in her voice, the way she had looked at him with a sense of wonder, as if she was seeing him for the first time, and nodded at him in a way that lingered in his mind. Leo, the kid, had been quiet and far away. The familiar bright energy had softened, and that more than anything. Harrison, feeling a bit unsettled, embraced his inner businessman and resolved to make things right. He confidently purchased the diner, knowing it was a straightforward transaction with just a few phone calls. Calls a number that made the previous owner excited to sign, and just like that, the Bluebell Diner became his. He wasn't keeping it. No, this wasn't an acquisition. It was a gift Harrison had. Everything is set. He will stroll into that diner and hand Sophie the deed. Show her that this was never about power or business. It was all about her. Leo felt something special that he couldn't fully express yet, but he was certain he wanted to hold on to it the moment he stepped in. As the diner door swung open, conversations paused and employees stood still, creating a moment filled with anticipation. Customers turned, and Sophie, standing behind the counter refilling a coffee cup, locked eyes with him. He had anticipated this moment. Hostility. What he hadn't expected was the exhaustion in her face, the deep weariness that made something shift in. He confidently approached the counter, pulling the envelope from his coat pocket and placing it down in front of him. It's yours, Sophie. What a surprise. Diner, he said with a calm demeanor. I bought it, and now I'm giving it to you. Silence lingered for a while. An overwhelming stillness followed by Sophie releasing a slow, incredulous breath, and then to his absolute horror she laughed. But it was a laugh that carried a hint of disbelief. The kind of laugh that sent a shiver of excitement down his spine as she shook, her head resting on the edge of the counter. You purchased the diner. Yes, Harrison said, feeling like the ground beneath him was suddenly unstable. You can relax now. Everything is going to be just fine. Embrace this place, Sophie. It's truly yours. With no strings attached and no conditions. Just enjoy it. The word hung in the air, surprising Harrison as he blinked in response. What? He asked, and Sophie repeated herself with a smile. Pushing the envelope back toward him. Take it back. Harrison frowned. Sophie, I believe there's a misunderstanding. Her voice, Rose, is truly captivating. Through the air like a knife. It's important to approach challenges with thoughtfulness rather than just throwing money at them. He clenched his jaw, ready to tackle the situation head-on. That's not what I'm doing, is it? Sophie's hands curled into fists. I believe this could really make a difference, as if someone with great resources could come in and help me tackle my challenges. With a check, Harrison stiffened. He had anticipated gratitude, perhaps even relief, yet. I was trying to help, he said, his voice low but steady. I never asked for this. Your help, Sophie. A thick, unbearable tension stretched between us. Then, from the side, a small voice called out, "Mom." They both turned to see Leo standing there, standing near the entrance, wide-eyed, his small hands gripping the straps of his backpack. Sophie inhaled sharply. Her anger was wavering, but Leo's gaze was fixed on Harrison instead of her. "Purchased the diner?" Leo inquired, his voice just above a whisper. Harrison swallowed. "Yeah, kid, I did." Leo's face was twisted in confusion. "But that's a positive moment, right, Mom?" Sophie closed her eyes for a moment before crouching down to her son's level. "Leo, sweetie, it's not quite that simple." Leo's small brows furrowed in thought. "Together, and isn't it wonderful that Mr. Wolf is trying to help? Isn't that what we wanted?" Sophie exhaled while rubbing her forehead. "It's not just about help, Leo. It's about the significance behind it. I want to take charge of my own life and not rely on someone else to come in and fix things for me. But I can feel that he genuinely cares." Even if Leo's voice cracked, his young face showed a hint of frustration, wondering why a simple thank you couldn't be expressed. Sophie. Her expression softened, revealing a hint of conflict. But Harrison could still see the glimmer of resilience in her eyes. And that's when it struck him he had experienced a loss. But not in the way he was accustomed to facing defeat. In negotiations or financial battles, this loss felt personal because Leo was. Horace felt a wave of concern as he noticed Sophie looked hurt. Realizing he had made some mistakes, a slow step back, he glanced at Sophie, the anger bubbling just below the surface. She felt a bit weary as she searched for the perfect words for her son. But then he glanced at Leo, and a spark of hope emerged. Cut short unexpectedly, and for the first time in his life, Harrison recognized that money wasn't the solution. He picked up the envelope. And though he didn't say anything, there was a sense of possibility in the air. Argue just gave them one last look, turned, and walked out. The cold greeted him with a brisk embrace. As he stepped outside, it wasn't the wind that made his chest feel hollow. It was the weight of losing them both, and he recognized that he had the power to learn and grow from this experience. Harrison had always been the type to embrace challenges. If something didn't work, he analyzed, adjusted, and moved forward with enthusiasm. That was how he built his empire and maintained his position at the top. But losing Sophie is just a new chapter in his journey. And Leo was different, for the first time in years. He was open to discovering how to fix what was ahead of him. He had broken, and a part of him longed to return to the way things were, to find peace again. Immersed in work to act as if none of this had ever happened, yet reason seemed to take a back seat. In the chaos he had created, there was a glimmer of truth. He truly missed them. Especially Leo's presence. His ridiculous ideas and relentless enthusiasm made him miss Sophie's sharp comebacks and the way she challenged him. Way she saw through the carefully constructed persona he had built over the years, and he found it challenging. Understanding that he had caused them unhappiness, he felt a strong commitment to stay and make things right. This time, he took the bold step of calling off the entire Lincoln Square development project, showing a willingness to explore new possibilities. Removed the diner from the acquisition, which was a positive step, but he still felt it wasn't enough. He wanted to ensure that Sophie didn't think he was saving her. Wanted her to realize she had the power to save herself. So in an unprecedented, he decided to close everything down. No buyouts, no renovations, and no luxury high-rises. In his statement, he expressed confidence that all existing stores, including the Bluebell, would be supported during the transition, ensuring a bright future for local businesses. Remaining right where they were, it wasn't a grand gesture, it wasn't something he gave her, it was something special she had fought for. And this time he was stepping aside and allowing her to triumph. But he wasn't finished. A week went by before he strolled back into the Bluebell once more. He didn't walk in like he owned the place. Instead, he arrived as a customer, ready to explore possibilities rather than bringing deals or solutions. The diner was bustling with the familiar morning crowd filling the booths. And Sophie was behind the counter, ready to serve. The counter gliding between customers, pouring coffee and balancing plates with a remarkable ease that had always been inspiring. When she finally looked up and saw him, she was momentarily taken aback. But Harrison remained calm and composed. He casually took a seat at the counter, folded his hands, and, after a long moment of waiting, She gazed at him with a mix of caution and mystery. Then, with a light-hearted chuckle, she picked up the coffee pot and strolled over to Black, ready to brighten the moment. She cheerfully filled a cup and slid it in front of him. Harrison smirked. He chuckled, recalling your previous complaints, then paused. How's everything going? Sophie glanced at him and exhaled. She recognized he was upset, and she admitted he still is. I don't understand why we stopped seeing you, Harrison. I never meant to hurt you. I know, Sophie said softly, then fixed him with a pointed look, but you still. Harrison nodded, acknowledging that for a while they enjoyed the quiet in the diner, bustled around them, and for once he felt a sense of joy just being present. He returned. Each day brings new opportunities at the counter. Sophie continued to order the same coffee, despite its flaws, and gradually she began to focus her attention elsewhere. Even though he seemed like an unwelcome presence, she couldn't help but roll her eyes at his smirk. She playfully called him Mr. Moneybags. Quietly, yet a change had occurred, in one bright morning. Just as he was. As he finished his coffee, a familiar voice cheerfully called out, "You're back, Leo," before Harrison. The kid eagerly launched himself at Harrison, who quickly steadied himself. As Leo practically tackled him in excitement, "Mom said you weren't coming back," Leo said, grinning up at him. "But I..." Sophie groaned from behind, aware that she was mistaken. "But I could sense your fondness for us was undeniable." "Counter Leo, it's all good," Harrison said, still amazed by the sense of relief in Leo's voice. Face Leo beamed with excitement. "I have so much to share with you. Oh, and guess what? My mom finally took a day off." Harrison raised a brow glancing at Sophie. "Oh," Sophie smiled, with a playful shake of her head. Leo grinned as Maddie and the others stepped in to cover her shift. "She didn't want to, but I encouraged her to take a break because even superheroes deserve some time off. And you know what? She actually did." Relaxed, Harrison smirked. "Well, technically, I did get your mom a job." Sophie narrowed her eyes as Leo blinked, and Harrison leaned in with curiosity. "She's on the brink of discovery," and Leo couldn't help but gasp with laughter as Sophie rolled her eyes. And for the first time in a long time, there was a gentler warmth in her expression. They all felt a sense of belonging. And Harrison Wolf, the billionaire businessman known for his controlling nature, finally discovered the true meaning of happiness. Harrison never envisioned himself as a dad. He crafted his life and his empire on a success comes first and emotions follow. But on the day Sophie Carter and her son Leo walked into his world, and everything he thought he knew began to unfold in exciting new ways. Their initial meetings were quite eventful, even humorous at moments as Leo burst onto the scene. "Harrison's office is reaching out for a job opportunity so he can treat his mom to a special day off." Sophie, strongly independent and cautious of those who flaunted wealth, had no interest in engaging with the billionaire, who appeared to resolve every issue with his checkbook. And Harrison, accustomed to having others yield to his desires, discovered himself amazed by a woman who steadfastly remained unyielding. As each person recognized the depth beyond the surface when Harrison visited Sophie at the diner to find out if Leo's story held any truth. I witnessed her incredible dedication. She wasn't just proud. She was fueled by a mother's unwavering dedication to her son, striving to create a stable and nurturing life for Harrison, who had grown up with very little himself, recognized that fierce determination and realized he held great respect. He admired her for it more than he ever respected most of the cutthroat executives he interacted with daily, and Leo, who simply wanted his mom to be happy, holding on to Harrison with that same unwavering determination, confident in the billionaire's potential. An unexpected friendship blossomed between Harrison and Sophie, as he found ways to assist her that he never imagined possible. Initially, Harrison might have dismissed the idea of friendship when he welcomed Leo into his office, embracing the boy's wild ideas about cookies and spaceships, only to discover Leo's enthusiasm was so uplifting that his own employees began to smile more. Sophie resisted every attempt Harrison made to ease her burdens, yet she couldn't help but feel the growing warmth she felt when he showed up at the diner just to see her. Every act of stubbornness on her part only seemed to inspire his determination, curiosity, and beneath all the discussions and playful jabs lies an undeniable. It wasn't just Sophie who transformed Harrison. Leo's steadfast belief in him played a significant role. The notion that a strong man could still opt for kindness began to penetrate areas Harrison had long kept shut off. For the first time, He found himself excited about spending time with a child who wasn't related to him, sharing laughter over playful carnival games or happily listening to Leo share his day at school. The boy's sincerity shone through. Support Harrison's defenses in a way no business negotiation ever could. In the quiet moments, Harrison discovered himself, hoping to be someone Leo can truly depend on, rather than just a fleeting presence in his life. Sophie also noticed her carefully constructed walls beginning to slip. At first, she was hopeful that Harrison's interest would evolve, believing he might find new excitement and challenges along the way. But his persistence amazed her. Whenever she pushed him away, he appeared again, not with lavish gifts or checks, but with genuine care. Instead of attempting to solve her problems, he began inquiring about her aspirations concerning the individuals in the neighborhood who depended on the diner and what fueled her determination to strive so passionately. As she continued on her journey, she discovered that beneath the billionaire's confident exterior was a person who truly grasped the essence of struggle more closely than she'd envisioned. He too had once experienced what it was like to have nothing they didn't embrace. Family life can be quite lively, with plenty of discussions and debates happening overnight. Exciting moments like Harrison's attempt to buy the diner as a grand gesture, and also the delightful smallest details, like which cereal Leo should enjoy for breakfast, or if Harrison's high-tech coffee machine was a bit much. Every argument and bump in the road encouraged them to communicate, and with each tense conversation, they discovered new insights together about the essence of genuinely caring for someone, transcending business and pride. Leo was the glue that brought them closer during their toughest moments. He'd slip into Harrison's office with a determined expression, remind him that it's important to apologize to Mom for the mistake. All right then. He would go home and share with Sophie that Mr. Wolf isn't really bad. He just doesn't understand how to demonstrate his care. The child's unwavering belief in their potential as a team connected differences that eventually they found a place where Harrison felt completely at ease and no longer needed to stay too wide. He decided to call off the development project that posed a challenge to the diner, not to impress Sophie, but for a positive reason. He understood how much the place meant to her, and the community he visited as a regular customer was resilient in the face of challenges. Coffee generously tipped the staff while being considerate of Sophie and made it to Leo's Little League games. Sophie, for her part, welcomed him to join family movie nights and embraced the opportunity to lean on him when work became overwhelming, challenging yet revealing. She shared her aspirations and concerns as their lives intertwined. It's wonderful that even the regular diners began to ask, "So when are you two finally going to get serious?" It happened one late night, while past the diner's closing time. Sophie and Harrison were tidying up, working side by side in comfortable silence while Leo peacefully drifted off in a corner booth every once in a while. As their eyes met, a warmth filled the air, a beautiful acknowledgement of their journey together, while a pile of paperwork sat nearby. On the counter, bills and receipts from a long day. Sophie smiled, wiping her brow with a sense of accomplishment, and Harrison gently moved the papers aside so she could rest. "I've got it," he spoke gently, without any grandiosity or authoritative tone, simply extending an invitation. Sophie took a moment to reflect, her eyes lingering on him. She saw the man who had transformed from an arrogant seal into someone who truly cared and made thoughtful choices. Be there for her and Leo each day. In that moment, the last barrier she constructed around her heart blossomed as they kissed for the first time that night, a simple, gentle moment. The kiss beautifully affirmed everything Leo had sensed. Building a family didn't need an official announcement. It was truly the life they embraced with each passing day, and Leo began calling him Dad more often, exploring this new connection. It started out shyly at first, but soon it felt natural as Sophie began to trust Harrison, not just with her diner's future, but with her deepest worries and her greatest hopes. The proposal came months later, inspired by neither crisis nor argument. It was simply another closing. It was a delightful moment with the three of them sharing a milkshake as they locked up the diner. And Leo had nodded off in the booth once more, and Sophie was smiling at Harrison, a smile that filled him with the wonderful realization that he never wanted to see her look at anyone else. He gently slid a simple, elegant ring from his pocket, pressed it into her hand, and whispered, "Will you marry me?" Sophie's eyes brimmed with joyful tears. She didn't need to say much. She gently pressed her forehead to his and whispered yes, allowing her lips to lightly brush against his in a soft, grateful kiss. Leo stirred awake, halfway through the moment. Blinking groggily and quickly realizing what was happening, he let out a whoop so loud that half the staff who had already gone home would have heard if they'd still been around. Harrison and Sophie just laughed, arms intertwined. Around each other the ring sparkled under the diner's fluorescent lights as though it was something truly special, more precious than diamonds or gold. From that day forward they embraced life as a family, an unconventional one perhaps, but one united by a love that has been beautifully forged through challenges and a spirit of mutual respect. Sophie embraced help with confidence and grace, and Harrison discovered that true strength often involved allowing someone else to take the lead. Leo received the father he had always dreamed of, and the mother he adored finally found the peace and happiness she deserved. There were still disagreements, tears, and the occasional stubborn standoff. But they faced every challenge together, confident that nothing could tear them apart now, and in a quiet moment after locking the diner and shutting off the neon sign, Sophie leaned her head on Harrison's shoulder. She gazed at Leo bouncing excitedly by the door and realized that this man, once a stranger, had become a cherished part of her life. Once an adversary was now her partner in every sense of the word, and they had formed a home that felt genuine, founded on trust, laughter, and the unwavering belief of a child who thought anything was possible. For Harrison, it was not just a happy ending. It was the start of something wonderful, life he never anticipated desiring but couldn't picture being without. And each morning as they opened the doors to that little diner and faced the day ahead, he felt a deep sense of gratitude that often the best things in life come from the most unexpected places. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to share it. Leaving a like truly supports the channel, and if you're looking for more uplifting and touching stories like this, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on this one. Thank you for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next story.